Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We got a special guest, this guy right here, but we'll get to him in a second.
Episode 5.
Episode 5, Polar Bear Pop Culture Shop TV. Definitely make sure you look that up. Pay attention to the channel. Like it, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that way you know whenever we're going to post another one of these awesome videos. But we'll do an introduction real quick, and then we'll go over like how everybody's weekend was.
Okay.
All right. And then, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah.
I called him Christotopoulos, but that's not his name.
That'd be kind of interesting on my ID. But my name's Chris Klauser, and yeah, I'm a digital sculptor. I make toys, and I work for McFarlane Toys. So
he is a toy sculptor. That's why we brought him here, special guest. He has a lot of inside knowledge when it comes to making these things, and a lot of you people are here is because we love action figures and we love toys.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go over some of the ones that he has sculpted himself. He brought some stuff that we're going to go over later on in the video. But let's jump into real quick. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good.
It was good?
Yeah. I did a Monster Market on Sunday. Cult Classics puts that on. It's always a pretty good show. They do them monthly from October to like April. So Monster Market was cool. And then I finally went and saw something that I told you I was going to see.
Was it cursed? You got it on Blu-ray? Your favorite movie, you told me.
Yes. Watch episode 4 if you want to know about Cursed.
oh,
werewolves. Finally saw werewolves.
What'd you think?
It was a werewolf movie.
What do you think, Larry?
It's not the worst movie. Look, I enjoyed it. Like, I could see what they were trying to do for a low budget. You know what I mean? The concept was good. To be honest with you, the movie I wanted to see, the more they went into the lore, is Day One. They kind of just talk about it, but the ideal of everybody just going about their business, and then all of a sudden you have like a million werewolves in like a few minutes span.
Yeah.
That's the movie that I want to see.
Yeah, no spoilers. But yeah.
Well, I
know just to start, it was like year 2, like, and they didn't all this other stuff.
But then when
talk
they're
about what
talking
happened,
about it, you're just kind of like, wait a minute, I want to see what happened in that original day. Well, I mean, if they get more money and stuff like that. Again, I didn't hate it. I mean, I enjoyed it because I mean,
it was fun.
When's the last time? Well, I guess the Beast Within was the last one that went to movie theaters.
I didn't see that one though.
I did. It's actually on it's on Hulu right now.
I heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a werewolf movie.
It is a werewolf movie. It's kind of like the same story, but a little different iteration and everything like that. I watched it again. I enjoy it. I like the werewolf movies. He doesn't look bad as a werewolf.
Oh, okay.
And then they do something at the end that I wasn't expecting, which kind of made me go like, oh, okay, I like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did like this one.
What about you? Like werewolf movies? Or are you just a toy guy? The toy guy's just chilling over here.
I was gonna be like, you guys seen Werewolf in Paris?
An American Werewolf in Paris.
An American Werewolf in Paris?
Yeah.
We don't even mention that movie.
We were talking about
it didn't even get brought up last week because
the amazing female transformation.
The whole.
Well, you know what's funny though? The guys who made that movie, the director and everybody, they even said afterwards that they designed those werewolves more like cats instead of being like a werewolf.
It wasn't even the design though, just the movie itself.
Well, I mean the CGI.
Yeah. I don't care about. I get it, but design wise, that wasn't the issue with that.
But I mean, for me, I just want to see a good werewolf.
And to even try to say it's a sequel or something to the best.
How could that even be a
sequel?
You know what I mean? Like that's like the Bloodline. You know what I mean? I thought it was like a cheap remake, like a cheap knockoff.
Edgar's saying he likes it off camera, which I think he's either trying to troll us or.
Yeah. And then, how was your weekend?
It was good. I hung out with the girlfriend, had an hibachi grill, and
shout out to the girlfriend he's mentioning it. Make sure you watch the video.
Mobile hibachi grill, and the neighbors were cool, and they had this guy that kept on doing sake shots all the time. So he had like this ketchup bottle filled with sake, or he had a squirt gun filled with sake. He had to do a question. If you got the question wrong, got sake. They counted how many times. Like it's like he just squirt this thing, and then it just like he'll count it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just keeps on going until you just kind of
choke on it.
And this man right here is the sake king.
So,
You are?
Yeah, and I was very it hits you to say, like, when you sake's kind of like one of those things where it's like, oh, it tastes really good, and then in the middle it creeps up on you. It's like wine, and then you're just like, oh wow, I think this is a bad idea, But
Real quick, is your girlfriend into collectibles? Do you talk about like toys and stuff with her whenever you see her, or like when you guys are together?
No, she knows she knows my field or anything like that. But
Yeah, you play with toys all day. And it's
yeah, I play with toys. Yeah, she accepts that.
But do you bombard her with it? Do you come home and you're like, this kneecap?
No. I try not to bore her with that stuff, but I try to keep it,
So she's not into collectibles.
No, I don't think she's into collectibles. She's normal.
She appreciates what he does.
Hey, we're normal. We're
Yeah.
normal. Everybody else is not.
Yeah.
Let me explain something to you. You see, you're not normal.
Is there anything that you want to start off with? Or is there anything that you got, like, first thing come to your mind when it comes to like making this stuff that you could tell everybody? Can you give us any like secret stuff?
Well, I guess one thing is, like, I guess I'll tell all the fans out there, thank you very much that support us. We work really hard. The whole entire team does a great job, especially with every bits, parts, toys. We love the praise to us, and obviously we like, the criticism is there, but we accept it, so. But,
Okay, because I was gonna ask, how do you take that criticism?
I'll say that I have a great story about that. So I worked on the Mortal Kombat figures when we did like the Sub-Zero ones. I didn't work on that, but it was the next round. It was the Johnny Cage and Raiden were my first figures that I worked on the Mortal Kombat line, and I remember making, and just how we made it was just, again, the articulation that we sort of had for that. Johnny Cage doesn't have anything to cover. McFarlane style is always like statuish type of detail, articulation. We try and be a little creative with it, and it wasn't bad. Like, it was. I mean, it's a very collectible like figure. Like, people try and find a good box copy
Of Johnny Cage.
and of Raiden.
I don't think I ever
So
saw
do you
him.
come up with the articulation? Do you come up with like the design yourself, or which parts?
Well, yeah. Well, we kind of have to map out how we have a certain template of how we do our articulation with our stuff, and we try to recreate it for every toy that we have. And some toys we have to change it up. Some toys we have double elbows. Some toys we can only do a single elbow due to the massive size we want to create it. So that's why sometimes we'll have that. In toys you have to reuse things. So you reuse bodies that have double elbows and stuff like that just to save on costs. So with the Johnny Cage, we kind of had to we kind of just kept a template with it that, it's just a new articulation. And so the toy comes out. I'm excited. It's Mortal Kombat.
Right, absolutely.
I thought it looks great. And then there's a site that I would look on the message board. I remember, they were telling me, don't look at the message boards when you work there. And I'm like, okay, no, sure, I get it. I won't look at the message boards.
First thing he does is he goes to the message board.
I went there. And I was like, I just want to see how people react. And then one of the first comments that I saw was a guy goes, whoever did the articulated this figure needs to be fired.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Because it's the worst articulation I've ever seen in my life. And at that time, I was only there for about 5 months or so, or 4 months. And man, I just went from to like, this is like, I felt like the worst. I just felt like crap. And then I tell my supervisor, goes, yeah, I told you, you do not.
Was that the first figure you worked on, or was that just the first one that you worked on in the Mortal Kombat line?
That was the first one I did in the Mortal Kombat line, but that was like the first fresh new figure, because the first ones I worked on when I was there was Fortnite.
Oh,
So they were like already the molds. They already had everything. You just reused them.
They're already kind of like, again, the template was already set for them. They're gonna have the double elbows and some things we have to change. Soft goods. Well, the Mortal Kombat was kind of like fresh and new in a sense for us. It was a new IP that we're sort of working with, and it was kind of a challenge too, because it's his character. He's just got a vest and he's got skin. Just it's kind of a challenge type of thing. So it felt very fresh and new, like the Raid and also it was game models. So it took a lot, because that's one thing with game models is that when you're doing game figures, you get sometimes, not all the time, they'll give you the game model, and the problem with it is that they're not complete.
Okay.
It's
Is it like a 3D model, or what does it look like?
3D model, sometimes all the textures, and they won't be complete. Like, you cannot 3D print them whatsoever, because like they'll have intersecting geometry, which is like the 3D. Like, a vest would go through the chest, and it's only like a plane, which is kind of like it has no dimension to it, so you have to give it thickness and everything. So yeah, I'm just, I was doing, so it's a lot of work when you dealing with a lot of games. And then there's some that you do not get the model, and then you work your butt off on making this thing. And then when you go to approvals to send it to them, they go, "Oh yeah, by the way, here's
what we want you to do." Yeah.
No, they give you the exact color, like model, and
after you've already worked on what you think, ideally what you think you're gonna do.
And you're just like, "Oh, thanks, that's great. I just wasted, I feel like I just wasted my whole entire life on this."
Yeah, that probably happens a lot on like movie stuff, I'm assuming, because they're kind of sending you stuff that they don't even have.
Well, yeah, movies are better.
They are better? Okay.
The movies will give you the scans, most of the time. Okay. There are certain stipulations and certain ones, because I worked on like the Aquaman 2 stuff, and then they gave us, they gave us some of the blueprints already after I was sort of working on it, because it was just like, it's kind of confusing on, like the vehicles, but luckily they're like, yeah, we're not going to do that. Like, okay, cool, because, but then like, oh yeah, here's the scans that we had of it. It's like, well, okay, well, at the beginning of it, when you see like this vehicle that you do not know, it's a concept art, and they have no scan or whatsoever, they don't even have any 3D model, it's kind of like it's a lot to kind of take in, because you got, in 3D you have to create like steps ahead of yourself. You have to keep always thinking 2 steps ahead of what you're going to do. You can't just like think in the moment. You have to pre-plan this stuff all the way out when you're sculpting anything.
How long ago was the Johnny Cage figure?
Oh, so I've been in the company for about almost close to 6 years. It was probably about 5 years
so
ago.
Since then, do you stop looking at comments, or do you still look at comments?
Oh, I still look at comments.
You still look at
I still do.
It's like a guilty pleasure.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, like,
do you sit there and stew over it sometimes? You just sit there at the dinner table and you're just like, this guy doesn't even know.
Oh yeah, I get mad about it. Yeah, sometimes I still do. I'm just kind of just like, it's like, dude, it's not that simple. There's a lot of people that have like YouTube channels out there that make these custom figures, and the thing about it is like, yeah, you make one, that's great. Make 10,000. Make 10,000 of those types. You have to have a process and logistics. It's not easy, and you got to, oh, okay, well, you make it a certain price point. Well, guess what? You're competing with somebody else that has a bigger name,
Absolutely.
So it's the problem. I mean, that's the one thing, beauty about the internet. It gives people obviously to have their voice, but a lot of people's voices, they're dumb.
It's a lot harder
They don't
than
know.
what it looks like, right? They don't know the process. They don't understand it. They just see the end product, and they have a million things to complain about.
No, but no, yeah, they're not. Yeah, no, it's just there's some of them that are very like they don't know. They don't know how the process sort of works, and like, companies. Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, they threw out a new repaint or so. Well, yeah, because they're trying to pay off the mold. They're trying to, and God,
but McFarlane toys get that a lot. I'm sure you read the people are like, oh, it's the same exact figure. They just repainted it. It's the same exact figure. They just made it gold. Oh, this is just a silver version.
Yeah. Todd's always done that though.
Well, McFarlane toys, yeah.
Right. And I mean, a lot of it too is just, hey, you may have, like, that's one thing about it is like some people are like, I need this figure, I want that figure. It's like, we would do that, but we got to make sure the analytics are right, because we can't just make one figure just for one person and then it's just like, or a couple people, and it does nothing, because that could be somebody's salary. That could be, I mean, that's the one thing that a lot of these is just, this is, there's a lot of things that go through this.
So are you responsible for the little legs on some of those figures?
No, well, I mean,
some of them I love and some of them I hate. Some of those little wobbly legs. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, yeah, no. Like some of them just design choices, but most too, just just the factory. Just sometimes, just it just the articulation's not tight enough for in there, and so they're all wobbly and they don't stand up. Heavyweight, depending on how it works. And at the same time too, we're in a very fast time frame. I mean, that's one thing with McFarlane is that we're chugging figures out left and right.
No, and I get it. What would you say is like the best figure you worked on?
The best figure I worked on, it's probably the Death Metal Batman. I always felt like that was probably the one that
The Death Metal Batman?
Yeah.
Don't you have one? You want to show it real quick?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just show it. Let's see it.
So this is something I worked on. This is actually one of my prized personal possessions. This is Death Metal Batman. It is the first full Batman that I worked on. The guitar was made for my coworker Elizabeth, who's awesome. She was like somebody who didn't know about 3D, and then we kind of brought her into 3D and just sculpting. And she's like one of our top like hard surface prop person. I mean, it's astonishing what she's able to do. So props to her. But this is the first full figure that I actually I sculpted. I worked
head to
toe, and I had Todd give me some things to like certain things on different like Puppeteer Lee. He wanted the Puppeteer Lee cover for his jacket, that type of style. Everything else I was basing off of I think a Dave Menke cover. But so I had that, and so what I did was I like to do this, and with I get them signed by usually the creators or so. So I have Todd's signature right there, and then I got Scott Snyder's, and then I got Greg Capullo. They're both the creators of Death Metal Batman.
Nice.
So,
that's awesome. So that's your favorite. What would you say your least favorite figure is that you worked on that you just have nightmares about and you hate it?
there is one out there. I probably can think about it. I'm just got to think, because like you work on different properties, and then you're just like, I'm just tired of this figure. And it wasn't even, I'm trying to think.
One eternity later.
I do have one, but I can't really think about it right now.
That's fine.
We can get back.
Like a nightmare.
If you remember, just remind me.
Oh yeah, I'll
talk
blur it
about
out.
Yeah,
I'll blur it out.
yell it out of the top.
It'd be like a nightmare. I was in there. Oh yeah,
like a nightmare scene from Nightmare Before, not Nightmare Before Christmas.
But there's like restrictions too, right? When it comes to this, like not restrictions, but like they want certain things. Like DC might want something different than, so they probably that kind of limits you too. I'm assuming on some of the decisions you guys want to make, and they're like, well, this has to have this.
Okay, you said you talked directly to the Todd father about like certain designs on this one and things like that.
Yeah. Like Todd looks at it and just goes, I want this and that, this and this, and then we create this, and then obviously, there's a process to where we have to work with DC about this things, and there's limitations that they want, and there's limitations that we can only do from a manufacturing standpoint. It's the same process that Hasbro or the competitors do. It's kind of it's a back and forth process in a way, because like there's certain things that you may like, but it's because if you everyone has a certain version of what cool is. Yeah, but then there's a universe. You can almost make an argument that could be a universal decision, obviously, by how well a toy sells about what cool actually is. Yeah. So that's all you're trying to do, is just trying to make a toy that is very articulate. I mean, at McFarlane, we try to make a toy that's very articulate, but also looks cool.
Yeah, he does look really awesome. When did this one come out?
It was like 4 years, I think. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, but the face, I want to make it more like a Frank Miller type of style, where it's kind of got like edges, very kind of, but still stylized, not as close to, hit like over exaggerate like him. So, but yeah, no, it's probably the.
Is that the only thing that you brought?
I got that, but then I brought something else.
What's the something else?
Oh,
I better use my little bag of tricks.
I brought the this is actually sort of a recent release, but it's the Grim Knight statue that we just released. Really cool articulation. Well, it's a statue, but it's got some really cool things like guns and other different parts, but it's mainly a statue.
Well, speaking of the guns, so this one must be like officially through the website then, I'm assuming, because guns. Tell us about the gun thing.
Yeah, so I mean that's one thing about with like DC stuff is like we can't really, like if you notice too, if it's through a website, there'll be guns, but if there is not like a retailer, any type of toy, there won't be guns due to, restrictions that we sort of have.
Is that because DC, or is that just who are the restrictions from?
It's just mainly just like, it's just more of just the access for kids,
They don't want Batman running around with assault rifles and what looks like a shotgun just strapped to his back.
Yeah, I think it's just
silencer right here. Look at that.
And I don't blame them. Covering their tracks, just make sure that people, don't.
Does the picture on the back still look like this if they get the one without a gun?
No. I mean, this is only exclusively for the website.
Oh, okay. So the picture. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was asking because it has the direct. I assume this was like online, like you can only get it online.
Right. Yeah, and it's based off of Tyler Kirkham's art. So that's what he's a cover artist. So that's what we try to base it off of.
But if you stay tuned till the end of this video, we're going to do a giveaway. This is going to be the giveaway. I am going to ask a question, and the first person who likes and subscribes and gets the answer correct will win this figure. Yeah.
Ooh, can I win?
Thanks to Chris right here.
And did you work on this one?
So I didn't. My coworker Jordan worked on this one. He posed it, but I did the Grim Knight figure that we had. And what he did was he took that figure and then he posed it in this, and he changed things up to match.
This figure here?
No, this figure, the Grim Knight.
Oh, the Grim Knight.
To match.
Because that's the heavy metal. Oh, I see.
The art in the back by Tyler Kirkham. He tried to match more of that. The original figure that we created, it was kind of more of a combination of design of just, that's where it was kind of nice to have a little freedom and liberty to kind of change things up, like he did keep like my knee pads that I created like specialty, like you can see like little knee pads is like got the bat symbol on it. I added small things like that, but he had to change the boots because the boots that I created were not like, accurate to what the Tower Kirkham was, but I think he did it. It's a great, it's a great piece.
But a lot of times they would scale. You can scale something up. Say if you had that figure though, and kind of pose them, and would you be able to just get in there and kind of scale it up and change stuff digitally, or is it something you have to sculpt? Like,
yeah, it depends on what like the texture that we add to it, because there's certain times when you create a small figure, textures don't show up too well, so you have to over exaggerate them or make them a little bit bigger than they are. So like a cloth texture, you can't really make those small little fines. You have to make it a little bit larger. So then when you make it, let's say if it's a 7-inch figure and you bring it up to like 12 inches or so, it looks a little weird, especially the size comparison then, because when you print it out, like, it's weird from our eyes that we see that. So then we have to kind of like take the texture off and then reapply it. That's more, metric, seems more.
that makes sense.
Real quick, off camera, he said he made this in a month. He made this figure in a month. That's crazy.
So I articulated, and then, obviously, coworker Elizabeth we had the other one is with the scythes. She did the scythes for that too as well. So she did everything really fast, and I was working on that on the side. And then once I got the figure done, Todd got the proof. That's like 2 weeks or so, or less than a week. And then I had to go articulate it. It's about a week or so in process, and then you give another week for. It's probably just maybe just a little bit less than a month, because that figure, I don't believe we had any corrections or so. If we did, it was like a small little minor.
Oh, okay. How long after that does it hit the stores?
Usually most of the time when you create a figure, it takes about 6 months, after production and prototyping, and then finally you advertise it. It finally hits the store, probably like 6 months. So,
they're pretty quick on it, because I'll see something is like
advertised,
and then boom, all of a sudden it's out.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're like, wait a minute. Like,
yeah, we changed that up too. That's true. Yeah, a lot of times when we do pre-orders, when you see it's already pre-ordered, we already have that's already been in development, for such a while. So now we change it to where it's like,
Question.
Yeah.
Is McFarlane Toys your favorite, or are you biased to McFarlane Toys, or do you have like another line that you like secretly appreciate and like you look at from a distance, but you're like, I can't necessarily go over there and love on that because you work for?
I mean, they're okay. We talk about other different toy brands. You have to learn.
Like you talk trash?
No. We there's some ones they could talk trash about ours too. So that's the way I kind of look at it. So like for instance, I think, like I said, the Hasbro, like their faces, they're just there's like a quality that you look at them compared that I think we can maybe improve a little bit. We're slowly getting there where you can improve the quality of what it looks like. Sometimes our faces look a little chalky, like we talked about.
The faces look really good in masks. I know a lot. Yeah, a lot. It's not that I don't like the ones without the mask, but for whatever reason, the mask ones are like.
But sometimes there's like actors' likenesses that we have issues with, and there's some good chats that have that about.
So besides McFarlane, what would you say is like another toy line that you appreciate or that you like or that you would pick up? Are you a toy collector?
I am. I do like to collect toys. I'm not in like huge in depth, but I do collect toys because I like to get my toys. I don't really play with them. I can't. Well, some of them
he plays with them. Everybody, he plays with them.
Mission accomplished. Back to base, Joe.
No, something you got around here, SH Figure Arts. I love SH Figure Arts.
Yeah, because earlier you were talking about that you really like the some of the third party stuff and some of like the articulation in those third parties. Do you collect any of those?
Oh yeah, I collect a lot of those different types. Mezco is another one that I really like. How,
any of the snail shells? Did you see our review of the snail shell last week?
Oh yeah. So even third party. Mezco's not really third party, but
Mezco's does come out with some really good stuff.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Like, because you have the Dark Knight over there, and that one's really cool. Yeah, I don't know, but like some of the ones you like the one episode you had the Bruce Lee figure on. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, I like that old school type of style. But
you heard that, guys? He watches our channel.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it's like, SH Figure Arts, I kind of like because the fact that it's just the articulation. Like, there's a figure that it's just, we kind of had to model like after like the butts of all of our figures. Like when you rotate the leg, you want to at least have like a butt curl, and the influence of that was from a Bulma figure.
Nice.
Oh, SH Figure Arts. Like you would rotate her leg, and it's like it's still a butt cheek, no matter what. It's not like right. And so we still have those issues, I'm not gonna sit here but like. I'm not a fan of the Hasbro hip area because, again, we come from McFarlane but the issue, though, with us is that we have that diaper effect, and it's a little too much of a diaper effect. So that's where I'm like, okay, I can sit there and say that, but also, I have to kind of dog on my own company.
Absolutely.
So,
but it's stuff like you see what works on stuff, and you guys, like you said, you're probably looking at how other people are doing stuff. kind of get some ideas and kind of tweak that way. And it's about cost too, because you want to keep that cost, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. And
to be able to do this figure for what, $20-$25 at retail.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing about that we try and compete with others, that we try and give you something like a statue that moves but
looks good also when it's standing there, because I mean that is one thing that I do love about these figures was sometimes it doesn't stand like to the best, but when you put them in like an epic pose, they just look awesome when they're standing there.
Right. I think a lot of times, I think the team is just, they're just incredible, what all we kind of do there and the hours that they put into it, and just, especially people that are higher up that are above this, the supervisors that we sort of have are just, top notch. And, knowing how much things cost and just being able to put in molds and just like, making sure that they already have, some type of idea of like what type of, how much deco that we can hit on a certain spot. It's stuff that, I'm still learning. And even though I've been working for the company for, before this, I didn't do figures.
So speaking of that, did you go to like school to get into this, or?
Yeah, actually, I recommend if anybody's watching this that wants to get into like 3D stuff, no traditional art. When I was a kid, I kind of got into drawing and everything. And then when I went to community college after, that's another thing I recommend too, is go to, community college in general, if you can find some type of scholarship or so. That's a huge boost when you do go to college, because it pays for a lot of those courses that you really don't want to take, so like English comp, and stuff. But I went to community college and I learned about a lot more traditional arts, even though before I was kind of like doing like drawing, maybe a painting. But then when I got to community college, I was doing like figure drawing, and that was my first exposure to 3D. I always wanted to go into I wanted to work for Pixar, as a kid, and Jurassic Park and Toy Story, some of the big movies that I was inspired by. And I really didn't know, because this is like 2004 or so when I was getting close. Nobody knew, because I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. Nobody knew what the heck 3D animation or how you get into it, because it's St. Louis, Missouri. But they told me to go into graphic design, which community college I went to, and I was exposed to a lot of the programs I would use. I got out of community college, went to Full Sail University, and graduated in 2009 with a bachelor's in computer animation. And I didn't really get anything until I got my first internship at Rosetta Stone, the language learning software company. And then I, bounced around. They couldn't hire me at that time. They hired me back finally for a full-time job. And I was getting more in depth with 3D, just using different types of softwares and different types of ideas, knowing how production pipelines sort of work. Was up, go from there. And then again, a lot of career stuff happens just by knowing other people. And I was able to talk to a guy foam fabrication company. They would take foam and they would spray with the coat and make like statues out of it. And that's where I learned a lot more in depth with printing. But this is more with foam. So we're using like different types of machines to create these statues. I worked on Jurassic World stuff when I first got there. And and after that, let go from there. That's a one process about being in 3D animation. You're either, you're let go and stuff. You got to find new jobs. Found a job this is in Chicago. I found a job in Chicago that Bradford Exchange. They do a lot of 3D printing, like mint stuff. And and then they had I worked there for about 2.5 years or so, and then the job from McFarlane showed up. And the first time I applied, I didn't get it, but the second time I applied, I got it. And a lot of it was due to the fact that they were trying to have people, work because they're, in the office here that was located here, because Todd was he lives around here, and, so we, luck. It's just kind of like luck to kind of just be in that situation where, I learned about 3D printing in my last job. I was doing a lot more, so I knew a lot more terminology.
That's a start, because my daughter's actually taking graphic design. She did the community college. Now she's at ASU online.
Yeah.
But she's not sure what she's going to do with it yet. So it's kind of something cool.
Yeah.
You can do, sounds like you do other stuff, because I know, sounds like maybe it was some marketing stuff you were doing too when you were with Rosetta Stone, I'm assuming, because they weren't really printing anything.
No, I was actually working on software for Korean and Japanese learners. Oh, okay. So it's called Reflex. You may actually be able to find that video, but there's a video of our breakdown, our process back in 2011 or 12. And you'll see a young me that's very cringy with a goatee. Literally, and no mustache. I don't know why, but I had a goatee, and just a young little sprout.
That's a job for Edgar. Edgar's going to be on that. We will definitely try to find that.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Yeah, no, it was just like, so they would learn the language. They would have that, and then it would, they would go through the course with these 3D environments. And so they would learn how to use these phrases and sentence forms in just certain situations. And after they're done, they would talk to a trainer after that. So, but then obviously, it didn't really do so well about 2 years later, in Japan or Korea. But yeah, and then, like I said, it kind of, I mean, it's funny because McFarlane was technically my seventh, and when I was in college, is the seventh. I had to make a list from 1 to 10 of all the jobs I want to work at, and number 1 was Naughty Dog, and I almost had a chance at that at one time, and I didn't go through, but McFarlane was number 7, and so it's kind of cool now. They're kind of basically like a job that you kind of dreamed that you wanted to be working at. You finally are working at that.
And now you're in there. Yeah.
I know.
Now you plan on retiring from there, right?
I hopefully, yeah, I want to, yeah.
Yeah.
I got a while.
I wish I could retire. Boy, that'd be sweet.
We were talking about stuff on or off camera earlier. So capes, we were talking about how some of them they're doing cloth good capes now or wired capes.
Yeah. Wait, McFarlane's is?
Yeah. There's some of them they're doing, but also they're still doing some of the sculpted ones, and there's a reason why, right?
Yeah, there are. I mean, Todd loves his capes. I mean, if you, there's one thing I have to say about them. I mean,
more cape, the more he loves it.
He likes the flow of it.
Likes the flow of it, or so. I mean, there's arguments you can be made about like cost wise how it is, but at the beginning of it, it was kind of more just like because he kind of like saw the direction how the cape was going, and then there's a point where just like production wise, it's kind of like okay, we're gonna do some capes, we're gonna do some cloth capes, from there. But yeah, beginning of it, that was kind of more just like a direction that we sort of wanted to go with these sculpted capes.
Yeah, because he matches art. Because I know, like the Batman he did has the cape, the big cape, the statue. Yeah.
Oh, the one that you have over there.
Yeah,
that one.
Look at the Spawn movie. What's the one thing that everyone talks about is how awesome that cape was, and that's because Todd is just one of the masters at capes whatsoever. Obviously, with Spider-Man, defining that, but when it comes down, when it comes to other things other than Spawn, everyone thinks about that Batman 423. I mean, he knows how dynamic capes can be. So I understand, why it is, but why I would do the same thing if I.
So not going completely to cloth goods then yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That, and then I want to talk about the sculpting because you said a lot of times the sculpts will look great, but then sometimes the paint might take the detail out of it, or some of the paint apps.
Yeah, so like that's one thing we kind of when you're in, for people that are out there then with with 3D or so, it's like sometimes you have to kind of over exaggerate a little bit of the texture. So because you got to take into concept, we always look at it this way: is it's like a snow cone. Or just like a regular ice cream cone that you get from like McDonald's, where you get that, it's all crisp, it's awesome, but then it goes through different processes, and then it just starts softening it up, and then it just looks all muddy. And then so imagine that with like a 3D print, where it's like you get this awesome, just looking great print, but as time kind of goes on, the paint applications, you gotta put a coat over it, and then you gotta put maybe another sort of extra coat, and then you gotta put like a wash or
Any particular figure comes to mind when you're talking about this?
The one that I always remember was that because we had an issue. It's at the beginning. I think now we kind of have a better, we have a really good grasp of like hitting. But at the beginning, when we all were kind of like all new, we had a hard time really knowing how to really, because we're kind of like 3D guys. We're just like, oh yeah, we just print that one, it looks good, and then we don't realize that, oh yeah, this has to be mass produced. The molds have to be moved around quite a bit, And I think the one that always comes to mind was I think his name's Drew. It's the werewolf from Fortnite. It was his teeth. His teeth, for some reason, were getting lost, and we couldn't figure out. We were digging in, and there's another coworker that I had named Gordon who was working on that, and he was like, I don't really know. Like, and I saw the model, and it was like literally, it's just like it's so sunk in there but it's because the fact that the lines were so thin, and it just kind of collapsed almost in a way, but you have to make it thicker, just a thicker line. So that was kind of like, oh, okay. So even when you're doing hair strands, it's kind of like, okay, you can put all these small little details in there, but when you're making a toy that's, 20,000 units or so, 20 different, meaning, 20,000 different types of that same toy, you're going to have to make, that's not going to happen that well because, there's so many. Again, it's that ice cream effect. It's gonna melt together in a way. It's just gonna look smooth, or it could flake off if it's too thin. So you have to basically make sure that the lines are accurate, and but also too thick enough to where when you do those paint applications, it doesn't, overflow it or
wash it out.
Yeah.
Okay. One more question. Anything that you can talk about that's like coming out, like maybe next year? Like, do you guys got any like new lines?
Ooh, yeah, stuff that you're working on right now that you can divulge, that you can
it's something
speak
you
of?
can't, that's fine. But
I mean, there's not really much I could really say. Yeah, but I mean, there's stuff that's out. It's already. I mean, some of the stuff that that we kind of post every day. I mean, we're constantly pushing with our DC stuff. Sports is definitely we're doing a lot of. We're gonna have some updates with that probably soon. Just keep an eye out. Just follow us on McFarlane. Almost every week we have something new coming out. So
Didn't you also work on a Game of Thrones thing?
Oh yeah, I did. I worked on that blind box thing that we did. Like I had to create the concept for that and everything. And it's it's a cool little thing. It's just I had to do the map and do a concept for those things and the statues, the figures. Was working with my supervisor Stefano, and then another plug. That's right. That's my bud Stefano. He was we and then obviously I had Frank, who's the other guy. He's my art director. He's a legend, and the company's been there since day one, since McFarlane's kind of been on its ground and stuff. And we all that one was pretty cool. Just kind of finally doing some type of concept work for something that is now a product. So
yeah. Let's talk about the Todd Father.
Okay. So what do you want to know?
Yeah, I just want to know, do you have any cool stories that you could tell us about, like you and the Todd Father? Funny ones, ridiculous ones?
Oh yeah, it's one. I have
stuff you might question why you told us.
I have ones that are like my favorite. Like my favorite one is when so I'm on. It all started when I first was working there. I'm a baseball guy. I'm from St. Louis, so St. Louis Cardinals and stuff. And he knew about that, and but I guess before this, I'll do the one. I when I meet celebrities or people that I look up to, like Todd was like
number 7 on your list.
Yeah, number 7 on my list. But I grew up with Spider-Man. His Spider-Man was the one that I grew up with. That was the first comic one of the first comics I ever bought was that Spider-Man #1. It was the silver cover. And then I just everything about him I knew about Spawn because I remember seeing the Spawn movie. I just never could I never buy all the comics or so because they're pretty being a kid my mom would look through it and be kind of graphic, so she's
kind of graphic,
very very protective but she'd allow me to.
What does she think about you working for him now, real quick?
She thinks it's cool, obviously it's different
now that you're an adult. She's like, it's okay if you look at all that stuff.
So the first day I get there, I meet Todd and I'm fanboying out, and it literally is just like I'm like Chris Farley in that SNL skit when he's interviewing Paul McCartney.
Hey, remember when you were in the Beatles and you did that album Abbey Road, and
I'm saying the most dumbest questions. I'm like, so you like hockey? It's like, yeah, and I knew in my head I was like, yeah, he does love hockey because he was part owner of the Edmonton Oilers and he's from Calgary. It's like, everybody in Canada loves hockey. So. He's like, yeah, sure. And I can just tell by his face. He's just like, oh boy, it's another one. He's, fanboying out. So it took me a while to kind of fanboy, to get out of the fanboy. So, now I see him say, hey, Todd. He goes, hey, Chris, just out of the blue. And
do that impression again.
Hey, Chris. Hey, how's it going, big man? How's it going, big shot? And, but he goes, first year I'm there, he goes, when I first started, I was in, a guy's named Nick Hughes. I was in his office, and it was kind of like because they didn't have a spot for me, and so I was in like a small little desk area in this guy's office, and Todd just rolls in, just sits on a chair and rolls in. He goes, "Hey, let me just ask you something." I'm thinking it's about work, and he goes, "You like baseball, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "You ever done any fantasy baseball?" I'm like, "No, it's been a while." And he goes, "Well, would you want to join a fantasy baseball?" And in my head, I'm just like, "Well, I don't really, I did it probably back in 2010. I really didn't like it because I sucked at it, but it's Todd McFarlane, so yes, I'm going to say yes." So I said yes. So I was in a fantasy baseball league with Todd. And what was great about it was the fact that, as time kind of went on, COVID hit, we didn't do it. And then finally, he comes back and he goes, "Hey, didn't know if you're still interested, so-and-so is not going to be in it. Would you like to be in it?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'd love to." So the season goes on, and I'm clearly not going to win it. It's halfway.
You already know you're destined to lose.
So me and this other coworker, Al, we talk about all the time. We're just like, baseball. We know we're clearly not going to win it because this guy who's number one has all the best players. It's like when Acuna Jr. was like, that's his like MVP, awesome season. This is 2 years ago, and that guy had him, and he had all these other people. So we're like, we got it. But one thing I noticed was I'm beating Todd, and so halfway through, and I told the guy Al, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to win this thing, but I'm going to beat Todd. That's all my goal is to do, is to beat Todd.
And rub it in his face?
I'm going to sit there and be like, I beat Todd McFarlane at baseball, is the way I kind of looked at it. So it goes on. Points are kind of going up and down, up and down. 2 days before the end of the season, I'm 7 points ahead. The last day, I'm now 2 points.
So it started off, you were like, I'm going to beat this
I don't know
guy.
what the heck happened, but I lost a lot. And I'm sitting like all nervous, like, oh my God, seriously, is this going to happen? And I remember I was watching in live. It was I think the Brewers against the Braves. And I'm like, okay, it's the 9th inning. I said, okay, if the Brewers, I think it's the Brewers, if they tie it up, we'll go into extra innings. I have a player that's on the Braves. It gives me a chance to get an extra hit so I can go up. I'm already up, a point above Todd at this point.
But only one.
Only 1 point.
Only one.
So they tie it up, and I'm like, sweet, my player can come up. Well, it's the next innings. My player comes up, and he strikes out.
Strike!
Doesn't affect anything. I'm like, okay, cool, well, it's whatever. And then I forget that. And Todd has a player called, his name, Marcelo Zuna. And he is an outfielder for the Atlanta Braves. And he's coming up 2 outs. There's a person on first. And all he needs to do, if he hits a home run, then he gets points. And he could probably jump over me. It gets down to it, 2 strikes. I'm watching on like the MLB screen where it freezes. It's kind of like got the player, but it's not the actual last name. It freezes, and I'm like, oh, he struck out? He struck out. And I'm like, okay, this is going for a while. And then out of nowhere, it just says, Marcelo Zuna hits a 2-run home run. He wins the game. Todd goes from beating me. I was beating him by a point, and for some reason, I lost him by half a point. And that was the last game of the season. And I'm like, oh man, this sucks so
by bad. A half a point, not even a full point.
A half a point.
2 home runs.
I was so mad. I'm just like, I spent a whole freaking half of a season just to beat this man, and I was doing everything. I was changing everything up, and I'm like, oh, I hope Todd doesn't. I wonder how he's going to react. And I don't even know if he even knows that I even wanted to beat him. Next day comes in. Todd's routine is this. He comes into the office. He usually gets settled in, and he goes over to the comic people because we're in the same office space as the comic people. And then, he talks to them, works in the comic. Well, I go, I'm just sitting there, and I hear him, because you can hear him when he comes in the office. He puts his stuff down, and instead of going to comic people, comes right to me, sits in the chair right beside me, and just looks at me, and he goes, all that work, and you lost by a half a point. I started laughing. And so instead of just sitting there, we break it all down, and I just, I always remember.
Who told him?
Al. Yeah. That's when I realized, Al told you, okay, that I was trying to beat you the whole entire time. And then, yeah. And then
thanks, Al.
Then we just sat there watching John Boy. He's the guy who does lip reading for all the baseball athletes. We just watched videos for 30 minutes. I'm like, you're supposed to be going over there working on the comic book, What he's just sitting there watching, Aaron Boone of the New York Yankees getting kicked out, being lip reads of that. And he told me a great story about how, when he was in baseball. So, yeah. So that's one of my favorite stories because it's just the fact that he just sat down and just looked right dead me in the eye, just like,
yeah, he's super chill. Oh yeah, super chill, super awesome to have a conversation with.
Best comic creators. I'm always saying comic creators, but I mean just in general for fans, one of the best people with fans. And I've had people because I help out at a comic shop. I had a guy come in saying like, hey, I heard Todd is one of my friends said he's kind of a dickhead, and I'm like, yeah, that person did something to really just spark that because I've never seen anybody. I mean. I've had a guy drive 8 hours, comes to the office. You're not supposed to do this, by the way. Just want to give people a heads up. Don't do this because you're going to get a no. But he comes to the office and he goes, is Todd there? And me being new, is when I first started, I said, oh yeah, let me just see. And then obviously everyone's sitting there going, Chris, what are you doing? No, you don't do that. And Todd's just like, yeah, sure, I'll come up there. I'll just say hi to them, I'll just watch it. So,
what's so funny about that story? Because that's the first time, that's how I met you, remember?
Yeah. That's true. This guy walked up.
I saw the door. I was just there in the building doing something else, and I saw the door, and I didn't know that's where it was. And I just rang the doorbell, and then this guy shows up, and we didn't know each other at the time, but he's just sitting there doing that look, like, What? He was like, what are you doing?
Back to my desk. I'm like, there's a guy that I guess he's a fan of Todd's, and he just showed me his back with his tattoo of the Violator and Spawn. And I'm like, and the guy's sitting there, and I told him, like, yeah. He goes, can I come in? I was like, no, you can't come in. I'm sorry. He goes, well, can I see the stat? Because there's you saw the
movie, yeah, from the movie, yeah,
the movie Spawn. And I'm just like, he goes, can I just see that? I'm like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. Sorry, dude.
Any chance to show that tattoo?
No, I just was telling him how much of a fan I was, but it's funny because then it's like I meet him again later, and he was just like, "Wait, weren't you the guy?" Yeah. And I remembered you because I was like, "Yeah, remember me? I was that guy that knocked on the door."
I was like, "Holy smokes!" Yeah, that was at the first time I did the.
It was a lot. It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then, other ones, like I said, sometimes, I see him and I'm just like, you talk about baseball, and he'll just talk a lot about it. The other moment I had was when this is last season, and we were talking about how sometimes have such a great game, and then out of nowhere you're going down like 2 points. That happens. Like you could have like an amazing game, but somehow in your fantasy baseball you just go down 2 points. We have a conversation about that. It's Sunday, and I get a text out of nowhere. I didn't even know he even had my number, but I got a text from Todd. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I just got a text from Todd McFarlane. I have Todd McFarlane's number. I cannot believe this. Like,
what did he say? Can you say what he said?
Well, no, it was just more about, hey, remember we talked about how the fact that, you have such a great, and you go, my OPS was like once, he was telling me a stat, and he goes, yeah, and I still dropped 2 points. And I'm like, oh, geez. And he's in first place, by the way. So he's like, showboating. But no, it's just like, this is out of blue, So there's other great stories, too, that people had where, he had to drive him back to his house, and when he's driving back, this guy Nathan, who's a painter, he was like, yeah, I was driving him back, and he goes, yeah, your tank's low. Here, pull over. I'll pay you for your gas. So he goes over, pays for gas, and he's about to get out. He goes, no, you're good. I'll pump for you. And he's Todd McFarlane, just out there willy nilly, not doing anything,
pumping the other guy's gas.
Pumping gas, and he goes, I never thought I would sit here and think that Todd McFarlane would be pumping my gas in my car, So. He's a character.
No, that's awesome. I love Todd McFarlane.
I know you've talked to him a few times, yeah.
Oh, so many times. He knows me by name sometimes. When he sees me, he'll look at me and he'll be like, I do know you. And I'm like, yeah, you do. I'm always up in your face.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. He does remember people. So that's one thing. It's just like, again, he sees so many people. So he does this sometimes, and I know it. I go to San Diego with, buddies or so, and this last time I went there, and I'm just like, I tell him, because I know it's going to happen. Because he sees so many people, so many different names. But it's almost kind of like he looks at me and just goes, oh, I know who you are. It's like that type of face, but he doesn't say my name. And then finally he kind of waits a bit, and then he finally says my name. And I was like, no, I completely understand that if he is that way, But like he sees so many people, he's got to learn so many different names. And out of the blue, he just sees one of his employees just pop out of nowhere at San Diego Comic-Con. I understand,
Takes a second to register, yeah.
Yeah.
But it does normally register, because whenever he sees me and we talk, he's always like, I remember you from this. We had this conversation. Yeah. And me, I'm just like,
oh, this guy again. Oh,
right.
Man.
I'm your #1 fan.
All right, everybody, thanks for coming and watching this super awesome video. Thanks to our special guest here, Chris. Chris, what's your last name? Clouser. So if you go back earlier in the video and you see the last name that I was calling this gentleman, find out where that's from. And the first person to like and subscribe to the channel and gets the answer correct will win this super awesome figure. Again, you got to find the name that I was calling this gentleman, like and subscribe, and then you win this super awesome Batman figure. Did you have anything you wanted to say on the outing?
No, I just want to say thank you, Jason, Daniel. Thank you for allowing me to be here and talk about, about all the stuff, toy-related stuff, So, yeah.
I could have asked you a lot more questions, but time-wise, next time we'll have you on for part 2.
Part two.
Yeah, this was courtesy of Chris, too, so thanks for
absolutely.
That.
Courtesy of Chris, absolutely. Yeah, he brought that. Yeah,
we're doing the giveaway instead of an opening this week, so.
As Todd says, support the cause. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you go.
Again, everybody, thank you for coming. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Hit the sweet bell notification so you know when the next videos are going up. And we want to say, everybody, have a happy holiday and have a great week.